Hi guys, it's Sophie and welcome to part 3 of 3 of my December wrap up. I know it's been a little bit epic, but cheers for staying with me. If you're still here on part 3 having watched all the way through part 1, you're a star. So the first book I have to talk about is The Sense of an Ending by Julian. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because I'm going to go over it a bit more in my 5 blind book challenge wrap up, but it's essentially about a group of friends who are within school and sort of the relationship with this one individual called Adrian, who's one of their friends. It's a book that, to an extent, you're trying to figure out what's going on, you're trying to figure out what the relationship between these people are, and there's a sort of secret running through that I can't really explain without spoilers. But I had an issue with that in that I didn't feel the reader was given out enough information to come to the conclusion themselves. No problem at all with books that spin you out on a tale and you're trying to figure out what on earth is happening, but I feel as though you should go back and you should go, oh, I'm an idiot, I should have picked up on that. I felt as though the final reveal couldn't have been foretold through reading the book, and that frustrates me. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, though I really enjoyed the writing, and actually the first half of the book I found really engaging. It's just the latter half had problems for me. And then the next one I have is The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami. One my brother gave me for Christmas. It's so beautiful. I've been trying so hard not to dive in and look at all the pictures, but it's just sort of heavily illustrated throughout, and all kinds of different sort of images and pictures and things to play with. I did just sit down and read it in one go, and I think that's good. I think that's nice. It's a really short little story about a boy who goes to the library to try and find a book and becomes ensnared in an underground lair with a girl who speaks using only her hands and a sheep man. It's really odd. It's very sort of strange, almost Night Vale-esque. But I did think it was great fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I thought that a little bits of it could have been better explained, but I thought that the book itself, with the illustrations and sort of the nice little ways that they played with words, was really nice and really fun. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous book to own and to sort of flick through and have a look at. It's beautifully put together, and I think the illustrations play with the story, and that's how illustrations should be. They should add to the story, not just sit there looking pretty. So the next one I have is The Man You Couldnt Start by David Adam. This is a book about OCD. It's not a memoir, not really, even though the author does have OCD. It's more of an overview of the disorder and the ways that it impacts people differently and impacts people's lives. I did enjoy this one, and I did think I learnt, a fair amount about the disorder through reading it, but I think I do prefer research books. I prefer reference books to memoir style sort of tellings of the disorders, of mental health issues. It's just a personal preference. I think there's certainly something to take about the overview of the disorder and the emotions associated with it from the sufferer's point of view, but I really enjoy getting into sort of brain, how the brain is working in those times of disorder, and also in terms of causes, correlations, links to other disorders, and what the current research is. That really intrigues me, and I did feel that it was lacking purely because of the fact it's done by someone who isn't studying it, who's suffering it. It was interesting though, if you have sort of a desire to know a little bit more about OCD, and probably if you're someone who has OCD and is looking to sort of reach out and find a bit more about what other people might think, it's quite valuable. There was one section in the back that I thought was quite interesting really. He sort of puts these appendixes in, and it's sort of how you go to a doctor and say, like, I think I might have OCD. And he does another one about people with OCD who think they might hurt children. So I think it's valuable for that, but for myself it did just miss a little something. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, but I do think it's worthwhile reading if you are interested in the topic. And then the next one I have is The War of the Foxes by Richard Siken. So this is a little poetry pamphlet-y sort of thing, and it was really good. I really enjoyed this one. I read it on the train and read it twice. I read it once on the way there, once on the way back, so I feel like I have a pretty good sort of hold on it. The poems are sort of a mix of different things. There are themes surrounding art and themes surrounding war and death, and also sort of relationships. I think some of the ones that struck me the most were the ones that played around with the sense of relationships and with the sort of lack of communication between the individuals. I thought they were really good. There's one also called The Stag, I believe, that's about a hunter's son trying to take down this wild animal, and the thoughts of the wild animal as it's happening and the thoughts of the boy whilst he's trying to please his father. So sort of that conflict there. I give this one 4 out of 5 stars, but I did really, really enjoy it. I don't know quite why I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars, but I think it's one I'll pick up again and again. Really interesting, short little snippets and nice to sort of break apart. I think reading it a second time gave me a much better understanding than the first read through. And then the next one I have is 3 novels by Cesar Aira, I don't know. So this is 3 little novels that are written by this bloke. I assume it's this bloke. They're good fun. I've never read anything by him before. I think this is his first piece of translated work, but please don't hurt me if it's not. And he's one of the most prolific authors in Argentina, but just hasn't gone across to the UK or to English sort of readership so much. I really liked 2 of the stories of the 3. Ghosts I thought was great fun, about these odd, naked, dust-covered men who they all accept as ghosts who just live in their house and are a bit annoying, but they'll probably go away when the building stops. That was great fun. The second one was The Life in a Landscape, what was it? An episode in the life of a landscape painter, which is about a man who is sort of obsessed with drawing the perfect landscapes and will go to any lengths to sort of keep progressing towards that goal. He ends up having a horrendous accident in which he sort of loses his face, basically, but continues to go on and to paint these things sort of against all odds. I quite like that one, but I just didn't like it as much as the other 2. And then the last one was the literary conference, and I really liked the literary conference. I thought it was great fun. It's essentially about an evil scientist who's discovered a cloning machine and has discovered that he can clone as many people as he wants, but no one's really going to listen to him unless he's got a figurehead. So he decides to start cloning celebrities, and it all goes horribly wrong and really messes up this literary conference that he's supposed to be attending. I really enjoyed this collection, and I would be interested in picking up more of his work. There were bits where I felt as though it was a little bit slow. I don't know whether it was potentially sort of the translation of it, because I did feel as though it was just the language felt a little bit stilted, that there wasn't too much of a rhythm to it, which sometimes happens when you're reading translated things, because you can sort of have to forfeit the rhythm for the meaning. Not a fault of the translator, I think it's just a factor of it. But I did think it was really nice. I think it was great fun, and I would certainly want to try and find more of his work if I am wrong and that there are plenty of other things published in English that I can get my hands on. And the next one I have is The Public Library by Ali Smith and Other Stories, and this is a collection of short stories about books, about reading, interspersed with sort of short interviews that she's had with people she knows, with other writers, with publishers, with librarians, who are speaking about books and why they think public libraries are so important and what sort of aspect of culture they fill. I quite enjoyed it, but I didn't really enjoy it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I think that kind of sums it up. I just don't quite get what everyone loves so much about Ali Smith. I have read 2 of her books now and I've just felt the same way. Just sort of, that was nice, but and I might just give up on her for a little bit and then maybe come back again. But I think I want a bit more depth in the writing. I want a bit more depth to the metaphors. I want a bit more description, and that's just my style when it comes to reading. But they were sort of interesting. I felt as though probably the interviews are more interesting to me than the stories, so that was a shame. But if you do like Ali Smith, I've heard other people really enjoy this, so maybe it's just not my cup of tea and it might be yours. Okay, we've made it. This is the last book. It's Welcome to Night Vale by Fink and Jeffery Cranor. So this was my Christmas book. I read it over Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Night Vale, Welcome to Night Vale is a podcast I've listened to for a long time. It's one that I have enjoyed for a long time. I have posters of Night Vale, I have shirts of Night Vale. And to be honest, this book wasn't the best book I've ever read in my life, but it's Night Vale, I would just dive into it anyway. It did very well. for them. I know that they've spoken about in the podcast that they were 4th on the New York Times bestseller list for 3 weeks, which is really impressive when you sort of think they're just independent artists, that they aren't sort of affiliated with any TV shows or anything. They just made it all up on their own. It's a really nice read. It explores some of the characters that we know within Night Vale in this odd town, but I don't think it's brilliant. I think you'd like it if you like Night Vale. If you have found it hard to get into, then probably don't bother reading it, which sounds bad because I did really enjoy this book, but I think it's quite particular in terms of people's interests. If Night Vale appeals to you and the odd sort of style, the contradictions and the sort of twistings of expectations, if you like that, then you will really enjoy this. If it annoys you, then this is very much the same type of thing. I personally really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And I think it was really nice to explore. I think it's a really beautifully put together book, and I really liked knowing more about the man in the tan jacket, which has been bugging me for ages. So I'm really pleased that I now know his story, and I know that they're planning on writing another novel soon, and I'll pick that one up, I'm sure. Okay, that's been epic. I've been filming forever, but thank you ever so much if you've been watching forever, and hopefully you found this interesting. Let me know what you read in December that you found really interesting. I'm looking to get some new books in January and in February. My birthday's in February, so I tend to ask for stuff then. So give me some ideas, give me some stuff that I should be looking out for in the next few months. Thank you all ever so much for watching, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye bye.